He knew the menu, but not the man who served it. Welcome to Marshshadowfiles. I am your host, Oliver Vane. Comment where you're listening from tonight. I appreciate every reply. Let's continue. I spent 10 minutes with the list Creel had left, another 5 with the menu, and the rest of the hour pretending I wasn't already interested. That didn't work. The names had weight to them, not just socially, but in the way they suggested friction. Dahlia Vane, I knew by reputation. Temperamental genius, turned down 3 hotels because their kitchens bored her, and once walked out of a private dinner because the butter wasn't European enough for her standards. Corinne Vale, the secretary, was new to me, but the type was familiar. Efficient, invisible when necessary, indispensable when it counted. Julian Haft, wine broker, had a face I half remembered from a case 2 years back involving counterfeit labels and a client who drank labels instead of wine. Lenore Quill was the kind of name that suggests a woman who arranges other people's lives in straight lines and calls it taste. 5 people, 1 menu, 1 dead consultant, and a host who preferred to stay anonymous until it was too late to matter. By the time Fritz called that dinner was served, I'd arranged them in my head like suspects at a lineup, each with a neat little motive tag pinned to their lapel. It was premature, but it kept me company. Dinner itself was not improved by my abstraction. Wolfe noticed. "Archie," he said after the second course, "you are chewing as if the food has offended you personally." "I'm thinking." "Then desist. Their thought should not be conducted at table unless it pertains to the contents of one's plate." "It does," I said. "Indirectly. I'm wondering who would go to the trouble of stealing a menu and then sending it back with a note instead of using it." Wolfe dabbed his lips. "You assume theft is the objective." "Isn't it?" "No. It is the instrument. The objective is pressure." "On Valerie?" "Possibly. Or on one of the intermediaries, or on the unknown guest who is intended to react when the menu appears in its proper setting." I took a bite of something that tasted like Fritz had made peace with the universe and shared it. "You think one of the 5 is being squeezed?" "I think," Wolfe said, "that someone wishes to control an event whose success depends upon surprise and precision. The menu is the skeleton of that event. And if it is known in advance by the wrong person, the entire structure may collapse, or be made to appear ridiculous." "Ridiculous is worse than criminal in those circles," I said. "Yes, which is why we must not assume the crime is trivial." He finished, rose, and went to the office without his usual postprandial pause. That meant he was thinking too, though he would deny it under oath. I joined him a minute later. He had the menu card again, laid flat, and was studying the 6th course as if it had insulted him. "What's so special about that one?" I asked. "Everything," he said. "Or nothing, which is why it is interesting." "Losa pushed for the change," I said. "Then he dies. Then the anonymous note points at it. That's a lot of attention for a plate of food." "It is not the food," Wolfe said. "It is what the food implies." "Which is?" He shook his head. "We do not yet know enough to pretend we do." That was Wolfe at his most honest and least helpful. At 9 the next morning, I was in a cab heading downtown to find Dahlia Vane. Wolfe had arranged it by telephone at 8:30, which meant he had risen early enough to consider it necessary. That alone told me the case had its hooks in him. The address was a kitchen loft on West 23rd, the kind of place where the rent is criminal but the stoves are magnificent. I went up, knocked, and was admitted by a man in whites who looked at me as if I might contaminate the air. "Miss Vane?" I asked. He jerked his head toward the back. I found her standing at a long steel table, sleeves rolled, her hands busy with something green and delicate that might have been herbs or might have been a controlled experiment. She didn't look up when I came in. "If you are from the supplier," she said, "tell him I do not accept substitutions. If you are not from the supplier, state your purpose quickly." Archie Goodwin. Nero Wolfe sent me. That got her attention. She looked up, and I saw eyes that could have sliced glass if sharpened properly. Wolfe? She said. Why? Because Mr. Alonzo Creel has a problem with the dinner you're cooking. Her mouth tightened. Creel has many problems. Most of them are not mine. This one might be, someone got hold of your menu. Her hand stopped. Not dramatically, just enough. That is not possible. It already happened. She wiped her fingers on a cloth, then came around the table. Up close, she was younger than I'd expected. Mid-30s, with the kind of control that doesn't come cheap. Explain, she said. I did. Not everything, Wolfe would have objected, but enough to put the shape of it in her mind. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. My copy has not left this room, she said finally. I didn't say it had. You implied it. I implied someone's copy did. Yours, Creel's, Valerie's secretary's, or the wine man's. Pick one. She shook her head. No, Creel is obsessive. He would sleep with the menu under his pillow if he thought it necessary. The secretary, Miss Vale, she is cautious. I have met her. She would not be careless. Which leaves you and Haft, I said. And you, she snapped. And Wolfe, and anyone else Creel has decided to involve. Fair, I said. But the leak happened before we came in. So unless you want to accuse yourself, we're still at 4. She turned away, then back. What else did the note say? I gave her the line about the host and the appetite. She frowned. That is nonsense, she said. Maybe. But it bothered Wolfe. That does not impress me. It should. He's expensive. She ignored that. The 6th course, she said. You said it was marked. Yes, of course it was. I waited. That course was changed, she said. At Loser's insistence. It was a correction. Correction of what? She hesitated, which told me more than if she had answered. Of a mistake, she said finally. What kind of mistake needs correcting with truffles and morels? The kind that would have made the entire dinner a parody, she said sharply. Loser knew the historical source better than anyone, and he said the original pairing was wrong. I disagreed. We argued. He won. And now he's dead. She met my eyes. People die, Mr. Goodwin. It does not always improve the menu. No, I said, but sometimes it changes who's eating. That landed. She looked at me for a long second. You think someone killed him over a course change? I think I don't know enough yet to laugh at the idea. She turned back to the table, picked up a knife, and began to chop with unnecessary precision. Tell Wolfe, she said, that if he intends to interfere with my kitchen, he will regret it. I'll tell him, I said. He'll enjoy that. As I left, I had the feeling that Dahlia Vane was less concerned about a stolen menu than about something that had been corrected and might not stay corrected, and that made the 6th course less like garnish and more like meat. Then I took a cab uptown and reached the brownstone a few minutes before 11. Wolfe was where I'd left him, behind his desk, with the menu card still occupying more of his attention than it deserved on the surface. Well, he said without looking up. Dahlia Vane didn't faint, confess, or throw me out. She denied everything, insulted Creel, and admitted the 6th course was changed after an argument with the dead man. Wolfe grunted. Details. I gave them to him, including her use of the word correction and the way she had tightened up when I pressed her on it. When I finished, Wolfe leaned back, steepled his fingers, and closed his eyes. Not in meditation, but in the sort of internal accounting he performs when facts begin to nudge each other into patterns. A correction, he murmured, of a historical error. That's her version. And she objected to the correction. Strongly. Yet it was made. By Le Sir, I said, and he's dead. Wolfe opened his eyes. Archie, when a man insists upon correcting an error, we must ask, whose error, and who benefits from its persistence or removal? I was hoping you'd say something simpler, I told him. You were hoping for nonsense. You will be disappointed. The phone rang. I picked it up. It was Saul Panzer. I've got a preliminary on Bernard Loser, he said. You want it now or later? Now, I said, and covered the mouthpiece. Saul? On Loser? Wolfe nodded once. Talk, I told Saul. Loser was 58. Consultant, lecturer, wrote 2 books nobody read unless they were paid to. Clean record, no debts worth mentioning, no enemies that show up on paper. So he collapsed at a private tasting in Philadelphia, hosted by a collector named Hiram Bell. 4 witnesses, including a doctor. Heart failure, as advertised. No autopsy requested. Convenient, I said. Yeah, there's a wrinkle. Bell's cellar has been the subject of quiet rumors for years. Labels that don't quite match provenance. Nothing proved. Loser had been advising him on authenticity. That's a wrinkle, I agreed. Anything else? One more thing. 2 days before he died, Loser met with a woman, Lenore Quill. Lunch, Midtown, they argued. How do you know? Waiter remembered. Said it wasn't loud, but it was sharp. Words like presentation, integrity, and exposure came up. I felt Wolfe's eyes on me. Good, I said. Keep digging. I'll want more on Quill and Haft, too. Already on it. I hung up and relayed it. Wolfe's lips compressed. Miss Quill argues about integrity with a man concerned with authenticity. Then he dies. The 6th course is altered on his insistence, and now someone circulates a fragment of the menu with a warning. Looks less like garnish, I said. Yes. The doorbell rang. Fritz went, and a moment later appeared. Miss Corinne Vale, he announced. Show her in, I said. She entered with the kind of efficiency that doesn't disturb air unnecessarily. Late 20s, neat, composed, dressed to suggest competence without inviting attention. Her eyes moved quickly, taking in Wolfe, me, the room, and probably the value of the rug without seeming to. Mr. Wolfe, she said. Mr. Goodwin, Mr. Creel informed me you might wish to speak with me. Might, I said. We do. Sit down. She did, placing her handbag precisely at her side. Wolfe regarded her. You are Mr. Valery's secretary. Yes. You handle his arrangements, among other duties. Then you handle this dinner. I coordinate it, yes. Do you know the menu? Yes. Has your copy left your possession? No. Has anyone had access to it? No. Have you discussed its contents with anyone not directly involved in the arrangements? No. She was good. No hesitation, no overemphasis, no defensiveness. If she was lying, she had practiced. I leaned forward. Miss Vale, did you know Bernard Loser? Yes. When did you last see him? A week before his death. At Mr. Valery's residence, he was reviewing certain details. What details? She paused, just enough to show she was choosing words. Presentation, sequence, to historical accuracy. Did he argue with anyone? Yes. Who? Miss Vane. That fits, I said. Anyone else? She hesitated again, a fraction longer this time. There was a disagreement with Mrs. Quill as well. About the order of service and the interpretation of a particular course. The 6th, I said. Her eyes flicked to me. Yes. Wolfe said. What was the nature of the disagreement? Mr. Loser insisted that the original pairing was incorrect and must be amended. Mrs. Quill objected that such a change would disrupt the intended effect of the evening. The intended effect being? Wolfe asked. A demonstration of refinement, she said, and continuity. Continuity of what? I asked. Of taste, of tradition. Wolfe made a small sound of distaste. Nonsense. Miss Vale ignored that. Mr. Loser said that preserving an error for the sake of appearance was unacceptable. Mrs. Quill said that exposing it would undermine the host. Did Mr. Valery take part in this discussion? Wolfe asked. No, he was not present. Who made the final decision? Mr. Creel deferred to Mr. Loser's expertise. Against Mrs. Quill's objection. Yes. I sat back. So Loser corrects the menu. Quill doesn't like it, they argue. He dies, and now someone is waving that course around like a flag. Miss Vale's composure held, but her fingers tightened slightly on her handbag. There is something else, she said. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Speak. 2 days ago, Mr. Valery received a telephone call. Anonymous. The caller did not identify himself, but he described the dinner in detail, several courses, the wines, the seating arrangement, but he implied that he knew more than he should. And? I said. He asked whether Mr. Valery would prefer the matter remain private. Blackmail, I said. Yes. What did Valery do? He terminated the call and instructed me to increase discretion. Wolfe snorted. An admirable but futile gesture. Did he mention the host? Wolfe asked. No. So the caller knew the menu but not the host, I said. Or pretended not to. Miss Vale inclined her head. That appears to be the case. Wolfe leaned forward. Miss Vale, you are efficient. You are also loyal. I do not object to either quality, but if you conceal anything from me, you will impair my ability to prevent whatever is intended. Consider carefully. She met his gaze. For a moment I thought she might hold something back anyway. Then she spoke. There is one irregularity, she said. Minor, but perhaps relevant. Nothing is minor, Wolfe said. On the day Mr. Loser last visited, after the discussion, he requested access to Mr. Valery's study. Why? I asked. He said he wished to consult a reference volume. Did he? Yes. He was alone for approximately 10 minutes. Was anything taken? Wolfe asked. No. Was anything altered? I do not know. I felt something click, not into place, but into possibility. Miss Vale, I said, does Mr. Valery keep any records in that study related to his less public transactions? She looked at me steadily. Mr. Valery keeps many records. Of course he does, I said, and some of them might make a man very interested in knowing the menu to a dinner he doesn't know he's attending. Wolfe nodded once, slowly. Yes. Miss Vale rose. If there is nothing further, there is always further, Wolfe said. But for the moment you may go. Remain available. She inclined her head and left. When the door closed, I looked at Wolfe. So now we've got a dead consultant who corrected something he thought was wrong, a service expert who didn't want it corrected, a secretary who saw the argument, and a caller who knows the menu but not the host and wants money. And a study, Wolfe said, into which the dead man went alone. Looking for a book, I said. Yes, Wolfe said, or leaving something behind. Wolfe didn't move for a full 10 seconds after Miss Vale left. When he finally did, it was only to shift his gaze from the door to the menu card, as if the paper might confirm what his mind had already begun to assemble. Archie, he said, you will go to Mr. Valery's residence. That didn't take long. You will examine the study. You will observe, not interfere. If anything has been placed there, altered or concealed, I want to know. You think Loser planted something. I think Loser did not request privacy in that room merely to admire bindings. Fair, I said, getting up. What about the wine man and Mrs. Quill? After. The study first. It is the one location where an action has occurred that we have not yet inspected. Which means, I said, reaching for my coat, it's the one place where something might still be sitting around waiting to be found. Wolfe made a small, approving sound. That's as close as he comes to applause. The Valery house on East 67th was the kind of place that made you aware of your shoes, even if they were clean. And a man like Edwin Valery doesn't merely live in a house. He curates it. The stone steps were scrubbed, the brass shone, and the door was opened by a butler who had probably been born knowing where to stand. "Mr. Goodwin," I said, "from Nero Wolfe." That got me inside. Miss Vale appeared within a minute, as precise as she had been in the office. "Mr. Goodwin, I need a look at the study," I told her. She hesitated, not because she wanted to refuse, but because she wanted to be sure refusal wasn't required. "Mr. Valerie is not at home," she said. "That makes it easier." She gave me a brief, measuring look, then turned. "This way." The study was what you would expect. Large, polished, lined with books that had probably been read by someone else before they were acquired. A desk sat near the window, the papers arranged in a way that suggested both order and control. If there was anything out of place, it would have to be subtle. "I will be in the hall," Miss Vale said. "You have 10 minutes. "I'll take 9, I told her. When she left, I shut the door gently and stood still for a moment. Rooms like that don't like being disturbed, and if you rush them, they close up like oysters. I started with the desk. Nothing obvious. Correspondence, ledgers, a pen set that cost more than my first suit. I opened drawers, not rummaging, just looking. Receipts, memoranda, a small locked box I left alone for the moment. Then the books. Loiser had come here for a reference volume, that meant something he knew would be here, or something he wanted to leave among things that wouldn't be disturbed. I scanned the shelves. History, art, wine. Plenty of wine. And I pulled one at random, flipped it open, nothing. Another, same result. I moved more quickly, letting instinct take over. If you spend enough time around Wolfe, you learn that instinct is just experience wearing comfortable shoes. Halfway along the second shelf, I found it. Not the book. Those were all convincing, but a slip of paper protruding just enough from between 2 volumes to catch the eye if you were looking for something that didn't belong. I eased it out. It was folded once. I opened it. A list, not of dishes, not of wines, names, 5 of them typed, with a 6th added in pencil. I recognized 3 immediately: Dahlia Vane, Corinne Vale, Julian Haft. The 4th, Lenore Quill. The 5th, Alonzo Creel. The 6th, in pencil, Edwin Valerie. Under the list, a single line, also in pencil. "One of these will not dine as planned." I stood there with it in my hand, feeling the room change around me. This wasn't a menu problem anymore. This was a seating arrangement with consequences. I folded the paper back along its crease and slipped it into my pocket. Wolfe had said, "Observe, not interfere," but if I left that where it was, it might not be there when we needed it. I'd take the argument later. I gave the rest of the room another quick pass. Nothing else jumped out. The locked box stayed locked. I didn't have time to charm it open without leaving fingerprints of a different kind. I stepped into the hall. Miss Vale was exactly where she had said she would be. "Find what you were looking for?" she asked. "I found something," I said. Her eyes sharpened a fraction. "What?" "Something that makes your dinner more interesting than advertised." That is not reassuring. "It's not meant to be," I said. "Tell me, does anyone else have access to this room?" "Mr. Valerie?" "Myself. Occasionally Mr. Creel, when arrangements require it." "Anyone else recently?" she thought. "No." "Good," I said. "Keep it that way." She didn't like the tone, but she let it pass. "Mr. Goodwin, don't worry," I said. "If this gets worse, you'll be the second to know." The second? Wolfe gets first. I left before she could object. Back at the brownstone, Wolfe was waiting. Not pacing, he doesn't. But the air in the room had that tightened quality it gets when he's expecting information he intends to use immediately. "Well," he said. I took out the paper and handed it to him. He unfolded it, read, and for the first time since the case began, His eyes widened just enough to count. "Phooey," he said softly. "Still the noisy kind?" I asked. "The dangerous kind," he replied. I sat. Lasser left it. Has to be. No one else had reason to hide a list of the same 5 people we're looking at, plus Valerie. "And the line," Wolfe said. "One of these will not dine as planned." "Sounds like a threat," I said. "It is more than that. It is a declaration of intent." "Toward whom?" Wolfe tapped the list with one finger. "That, Archie, is now the question. Which of them is the target, and which is the instrument?" I leaned back. "And the menu?" Wolfe looked at me. "The menu is no longer the meal. It is the bait." Wolfe kept the paper in his hand longer than necessary, which told me he wasn't just reading it. He was fitting it into something already under construction in his head. "Archie," he said finally, "we have been given a list of participants and informed that one will not dine as planned. The vulgar interpretation is violence. The subtler is exclusion. The most interesting is substitution." "Substitution?" I said. "You think someone's going to be replaced at the table?" "I think someone may already have been replaced in a more significant sense." "That's comforting," I said. "Which one?" "That," Wolfe said. "This is what we must determine before Tuesday." I reached for the phone. "Then we'd better get to the rest of them. Haft first?" "Yes. The wine broker. He deals in authenticity, which makes him a liar by profession." I dialed the number Creel had provided. It took 3 rings. "This is Haft," a voice said. Smooth, practiced, with just enough impatience to suggest he charged by the minute. "Archie Goodwin, Nero Wolfe's office." A pause. Then, "I was expecting that sooner or later." "That makes 2 of us. I'd like to see you." "When?" "Now would be charming." 2 o'clock, my office. Don't be late." He hung up. I turned to Wolfe. 2 o'clock. He's cooperative, or he thinks he is. "Men who think they are cooperative often conceal the most," Wolfe said. "Before you go, call Saul. I want surveillance on Mrs. Quill and Mr. Haft. Quietly." I made the call. Saul listened, asked 2 questions, and agreed without comment. That meant he already suspected where this was heading. At 1:30, I was back in a cab, heading downtown again. Julian Haft's office was in a building that pretended to be respectable while doing business that preferred dim lighting. The reception area was small, tasteful, and designed to suggest that money was handled discreetly and in volume. Haft himself was behind a desk that looked as if it had been chosen to impress clients and intimidate auditors. He stood when I entered, smiled, and offered a hand that had shaken more deals than it had ever lifted anything heavier than a glass. "Mr. Goodwin, sit down." I did. "You were expecting me." "Of course. Creel is not built for secrets under pressure, and when Wolfe is involved, pressure is inevitable." "You sound like a fan." "I'm a businessman. I admire efficiency." "Then you'll love this. Someone stole your menu." He didn't blink. "Yes." That stopped me for half a beat. You know." "I know that someone has information they should not have," he said. "Whether it was stolen or given is another matter." "Which do you think?" "I think," he said, leaning back, "that nothing in this arrangement is as simple as Creel would like it to be." "That's becoming a theme," I said. "Let's try specifics. Did you let your copy out of your sight?" "No." "Did anyone see it?" "No." "Did you discuss its contents with anyone not directly involved?" "No." "Did you argue with Bernard Lerser?" A flicker, small but there. "Yes," he said. "About the 6th course?" "Yes." "What was the argument?" "He insisted on a pairing that I considered unwise." "Unwise how?" "From a practical standpoint," Haft said. "Availability, condition, provenance." "Provenance?" I said. "That's your department." "Exactly. And Lerser was stepping on it." He was ignoring it, Haft corrected. He was concerned with historical accuracy, not with the realities of the market. Or with the authenticity of what you were providing, I said. His smile thinned. Be careful, Mr. Goodwin. I am, I said. That's why I'm asking. Were the wines you sourced for this dinner exactly what they were represented to be? They were what was requested. That's not what I asked. He leaned forward slightly. In my business, representation and reality are often separated by interpretation. Translation, I said. You might have been passing off something close enough to fool the guests. Close enough to satisfy them, he said. Which is the point. And Loser didn't like that. He threatened to expose it, Haft said, just a shade too quickly. There it was. To whom? I asked. To Creel, to the host, to anyone who would listen. He was a purist, tiresome but occasionally dangerous. And now he's dead. Yes. Convenient for you. He met my eyes. Are you suggesting something, Mr. Goodwin? Sir, I'm suggesting that a man who threatens your business and then dies 2 days later might make you look interesting. And I am suggesting, he said, that if I had wished to silence him, I would not have done it in a room full of witnesses. People do foolish things under pressure, I said. Not me, he said. We looked at each other for a moment. Then I shifted. Tell me about Lenore Quill. He relaxed a fraction. Lenore? She is precise. That's polite. She's concerned with appearances, he said, with the choreography of events, and she believes that perception is reality. And the 6th course? She opposed the change, not because of the food, but because of what it would imply if discovered. Which was that the original arrangement was flawed, he said, and that the host, whoever he was, had been guided poorly. Or misled, I said. Yes, and that would reflect badly on someone, I said. On several someones, Haft replied, including her. I stood. One more thing. Yes? Did you ever discuss the menu with anyone who didn't know who the host was? He hesitated. Just enough. No, he said. I smiled. You just did. His eyes narrowed, but he didn't answer. I left. Back in the cab, I ran it through. Haft had motive. Loser threatened his business. Quill had motive. Loser threatened her control of presentation. Creel had motive. His reputation was on the line. Dahlia Vane had motive. Her kitchen had been overruled. Miss Vale, less obvious, but proximity counts. And then there was Valerie, sitting at the head of a table he had paid for, not knowing that somewhere between the menu and the meal, something had been altered in a way that might leave one of his guests, or himself, out in the cold. When I got back to the brownstone, Wolfe was in his chair, eyes half closed. Well, he said. Haft admits Loser threatened to expose him, I said. About the wine, authenticity issues. Ah. And Quill opposed the 6th course change because it would reveal an earlier error. Ah, Wolfe said again. And somebody out there knows the menu but not the host and is asking for money. Yes. I sat. So now we've got motive on 2 of them, on a dead man who knew too much, and a list that says one of the 5 won't be eating. Wolfe opened his eyes. No, Archie, he said softly. We have something more precise. Which is? We have a correction that someone wishes to undo. I frowned. Undo? How? Wolfe's gaze went to the menu card. By restoring the error, he said, and ensuring that the consequences fall upon the appropriate person. I took a moment with that. Restore the error, I said, meaning the original version of the 6th course. Yes, and that somehow harms someone at the table. Or exposes them, Wolfe said, or compels a reaction that would not otherwise occur. I leaned back. So Loser fixes something, and now somebody wants it unfixed. That puts Loser in the way. Yes, and now he's out of the way. Wolfe inclined his head. So there, that is the simplest line. Too simple, I asked. Perhaps. Simplicity is often an achievement, not a starting point. The phone rang again. I picked it up. Saul. I've got movement, he said. Quill met someone this afternoon. Not Haft, not Creel. Who? Corinne Vale. That made me sit up straighter. Where? Small cafe, Lexington and 61st. They talked for 20 minutes. No raised voices, but it wasn't social. Did you hear anything? Fragments. Timing. Sequence. Mustn't change again. That kind of thing. Again, I repeated. Yeah. I looked at Wolfe. He was already watching me. Keep on them, I told Saul. Both of them. And if they meet again, I want more than fragments. You'll get it. I hung up. Miss Vale and Mrs. Quill, I said. They met. No talking about timing and sequence, and something not changing again. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Again. Which suggests the menu has already been altered more than once. Yes, Wolfe said softly. Or that someone intends to alter it again. I tapped the desk. If they're working together, that puts them on one side. Against who? Possibly against Mr. Haft, Wolfe said. Possibly against Miss Vane. Possibly against Mr. Creel, or against the unknown variable. Which is Valerie, I said. Still sitting there, not knowing he's the host. Precisely. I got up and started pacing, which Wolfe tolerates in small doses when it serves a purpose. Let's line it up, I said. Original menu had an error. Lasser spots it, corrects it. That correction threatens somebody. Haft because of the wine. Quill because of presentation. Maybe even Creel. I because of his reputation. Lasser argues, wins, then dies. Now someone wants the correction undone. And has access to the menu, Wolfe added. And sends a piece of it to Creel with a note, I said, and calls Valerie for money. Which suggests two parallel actions, Wolfe said. One covert, one overt. Blackmail and sabotage, I said. Yes. I stopped pacing. You think it's the same person? Wolfe didn't answer immediately. He picked up the list I'd found in the study and read the line again. One of these will not dine as planned. That could be the victim, I said. Or the culprit, Wolfe replied. Or both. I exhaled. I don't like cases where the menu matters this much. You should, Wolfe said. They are rarely trivial. The doorbell rang again. Fritz went, returned, and announced, Mrs. Lenore Quill. Show her in, Wolfe said. She entered like a woman who had already decided the room would behave properly. Tall, elegant, composed, with the kind of poise that comes from arranging other people into pleasing shapes. Her eyes went to Wolfe first, then to me, and assessed both without apology. Mr. Wolfe, she said. Mr. Goodwin. Mrs. Quill, Wolfe said. Sit down. She did, crossing her legs with precision. I understand, she said, that you have involved yourself in a matter concerning a dinner. We have been engaged, Wolfe said. By Mr. Creel, she said with faint disapproval. Yes, she inclined her head. Then I will speak plainly. This situation is being exaggerated. That is possible, Wolfe said. It is also possible that it is not. She ignored that. The menu has undergone revisions. That is not unusual, and the presence of an unauthorized copy is regrettable, but not catastrophic. Then why did you meet with Miss Vale this afternoon? I asked. Her gaze shifted to me, cool and steady. Because I wished to ensure that no further revisions would be made without proper consideration. Again, I said. She didn't flinch. Yes, again. Wolfe leaned forward slightly. Mrs. Quill, you opposed Mr. Lasser's correction of the 6th course? Yes. Why? Because it was unnecessary. she said, and because it disrupted the intended progression of the evening. Or because it exposed an earlier error, I said. She gave me a brief, sharp look. Perfection is an aspiration, Mr. Goodwin, not a constant. And Loser threatened that aspiration. He was inflexible, she said. He placed theory above effect. And you place effect above truth, Wolfe said. I place experience above pedantry, she replied. Wolfe's eyes flickered with something like interest. Did you discuss this with Mr. Haft? Yes. And with Miss Vane? Yes. And with Mr. Creel? Yes. Did you discuss it with anyone else? No. Did you, Mrs. Quill, Wolfe said, at any time communicate the contents of the menu to a person not authorized to know them? No. She said it cleanly. No hesitation, no emphasis. If she was lying, she was very good. I said, did you know Bernard Loser was planning to expose something about the dinner? Her lips tightened slightly. He was planning to embarrass several people, yes. By telling the truth, I said. By selecting which truth to tell, she corrected. Selective truth, I said. No, that's a useful skill. It is a necessary one, she said. Wolfe watched her. Mrs. Quill, if the menu were to be altered again, restoring the original version of the 6th course, what would be the consequence? For the first time, she hesitated. It would, she said carefully, create a situation in which certain expectations would not be met. Whose expectations? Wolfe asked. She met his gaze. That would depend on who was paying attention. Wolfe leaned back. And if someone were paying very close attention, he asked. Her voice dropped a fraction. Then it might create an opportunity. For what? I said. She didn't answer immediately. Then she said, for correction. Wolfe's lips moved. Pfui. She rose. Mr. Wolfe, I trust you will resolve this matter without unnecessary disruption. That depends, Wolfe said, on what you consider necessary. She inclined her head and left. When the door closed, I looked at Wolfe. She's in it. Yes. Working with Vale. Possibly. Against Haft, I said. Or with him, Wolfe said. I frowned. You're not making this easier. No, Wolfe said calmly. I'm making it accurate. I sat down. So what's next? Wolfe picked up the menu card again, his finger resting on the 6th course. We must determine, he said, what precisely was corrected, and why its restoration would matter enough to kill a man. I didn't sit long. When you say what precisely was corrected, I said, you're not talking about flavor. Certainly not, Wolfe said. Flavor is subjective, so correction implies objective deviation. Meaning something was wrong in a way that could be proven. Yes. And Loser knew it. Yes. And Haft didn't want it known. Or Mrs. Quill, Wolfe added. Or both. I got up. Then we need to know what the original version of that 6th course was. Wolfe nodded. Precisely. And the only people who know that for sure are Vane, Creel, Vale, Haft, and Quill. Yes. And one of them wants it changed back. Yes. I reached for my coat. Then I'll start with Creel. He's the one sweating the most. Good, Wolfe said. Perspiration is often a sign of guilt or fear. Both are useful. Creel received me at his office with less ceremony than before. The hat box was gone, but the tension remained, sharpened now into something closer to anxiety. Mr. Goodwin, he said, have you found anything? Yes, I said. Something that suggests your dinner may not go as planned for one of your participants. He swallowed. What do you mean? I mean someone made a list, I said, watching him, and wrote under it. One of these will not dine as planned. His face lost a shade. That is absurd. Is it? I said. Because that list includes you. That landed. He sank into his chair. "Where did you get this?" he asked. "From Valerie's study, hidden in a book, left there by someone who had access." "Lower, sir," he said. "Likely." He pressed his fingers to his temples. This is intolerable." "Get used to it," I said. "Now tell me about the 6th course." "Original version." He hesitated. "That wasn't on the menu you showed me," I said. "So what was it before Loser corrected it?" Creel exhaled slowly. "It was a variation." "Of what?" "Of a documented historical pairing," he said, "but one that has controversies." "Meaning it might not be authentic?" "Yes." "Meaning Haft might have been supplying something that wasn't what it claimed to be." Creel didn't answer, which was answer enough. "And Loser spotted it," I said, "and insisted on changing it to something historically correct." "Yes." "Which would expose Haft." "And potentially embarrass the host," Creel said quickly. "Why the host?" I asked. "Because," Creel said, "the selection of that pairing had been encouraged." "By whom?" He hesitated again. "Mrs. Quill." That fit too neatly. "So Quill pushes for a questionable pairing," I said. "Haft supplies it. Loser calls it out. Vane argues, loses. The menu gets corrected. And suddenly a lot of people have reasons to wish it hadn't been." "Yes," Creel said. "But that does not explain—" "It explains plenty," I said. "Now tell me something else. Did Loser ever say why he cared so much about that correction?" Creel frowned. "He said it was a matter of integrity." "His or someone else's?" "He did not specify." "Did he ever mention Valerie?" "No." "Did he know Valerie was the host?" Creel hesitated. "Answer," I said. "No," he said finally. He did not. That clicked into place with a sound I didn't like. "So Loser is correcting a menu for a dinner whose host he doesn't know," I said. "And in doing so, he threatens people who do know, or think they do." "Yes. And someone decides he's a problem." Creel's voice dropped. "You think he was killed?" "I think he was inconvenient," I said. "And now someone wants to undo what he did." Creel shook his head. "But why send the note? Why call Mr. Valerie?" "Because whoever's doing this wants more than just the menu fixed," I said. "They want leverage." "Over whom?" "Over everyone," I said. "You, Haft, Quill, maybe even Vane, and Valerie most of all." Creel looked at me, and for the first time there was something like real fear there. "This dinner," he said, "must proceed." "Why?" I asked. "Because if it does not," he said, "questions will be asked." "About what?" He hesitated. "About the foundation," he said finally. "The one that arranged the payments." I nodded slowly. And what would those questions uncover? Creel didn't answer. He didn't have to. I stood. "All right, Mr. Creel, here's how it looks. Someone wants the original error back in place. Someone wants the menu known to the wrong person. Someone wants money from Valerie. And someone left a note saying one of you won't be eating." "That is madness," Creel said. "No," I said. "That's planning." I left him there, staring at his desk as if it might rearrange itself into something safer. Back at the brownstone, Wolfe was exactly where I expected him, which is to say, immovable. "Well," he said. "Creel confirms it," I said. "Original 6th course was questionable. Quill pushed it. Haft supplied it. Loser corrected it. That correction threatens to expose them both." "And the host," Wolfe said. "Yes," I said, "because the arrangement went through a foundation that probably doesn't like attention." Wolfe nodded slowly. "And Loser didn't know who the host was," I added. Wolfe's eyes sharpened. "No," he said. "But someone else did." I sat. "And now they want the correction undone." "Yes." "And they're willing to kill for it." Wolfe leaned back, closing his eyes briefly. "No," he said softly. Not for it. I frowned. Then for what? Wolfe opened his eyes. For the opportunity it creates, he said. I let that sit a moment. Opportunity for what? I asked. Wolfe didn't answer immediately. He picked up the list again, studied it, then set it down with care. Archie, he said, consider the position of the unknown party, the one who knows the menu but not the host, the blackmailer. Yes, that person has partial information, enough to recognize value, but not enough to exploit it fully. Unless someone fills in the missing piece, I said. Precisely. And restoring the original error does that. It may, Wolfe said, if the error is not merely culinary, but communicative. I leaned forward. You're saying the sixth course isn't just wrong. It says something. Yes. To someone at the table. Yes. And if it's corrected, the message disappears. Or changes. And if it's restored, I said slowly, the message is back. Wolfe inclined his head. Then the question, I said, is who the message is for, and what response it is intended to provoke, Wolfe added. The phone rang. I picked it up. Saul again. I've got more, he said. Quill and Vale didn't just meet once. They've been in contact 3 times in the last 2 days. That's cozy, I said. Anything specific? Tonight, 8 o'clock. Quill's apartment. Vale's expected. I looked at Wolfe. He nodded once. We'll take it, I told Saul. Keep eyes on the place, but no interference unless I say. You got it. I hung up. Dinner plans, I said. Phooey, Wolfe said. You will go. Thought you'd say that. At 8, Wolfe said, you will be in proximity to Mrs. Quill's apartment. You will observe. If an opportunity presents itself, you will listen. And if it doesn't, you will create one, Wolfe said calmly. That's the kind of instruction that sounds simple until you have to do it. At 7:45, I was in the building across the street from Lenore Quill's address, leaning against a window with a view that wasn't perfect but was workable. Saul was already in position somewhere I couldn't see, which was the point. At 8:10, Corinne Vale arrived. No hesitation, no glance around. She went in as if she had a right to be there. At 8:20, so I decided I wasn't going to learn enough from a window. I crossed the street, entered the building, and told the doorman I was expected. He didn't believe me, which was fine. I wasn't expected. But he hesitated just long enough for me to slip past him with confidence, which is often better than permission. Quill's apartment was on the 4th floor. I went up, found the door, and listened. Voices. Low, controlled, but not casual. I leaned closer. Can't risk another change, Vale was saying. And we won't, Quill replied. It will be as it was intended. That's not what Lasser intended. Lasser is no longer a factor, Quill said. There it was, clean and cold. And Haft? Vale asked. He will comply, Quill said. He has no choice. And Creel? He will do as he is told, Quill said. He always does. And Valerie? A pause. Valerie, Quill said, will not know until it is too late to object. I shifted slightly, trying to catch more. What about the call? Vale asked. If he pays, he will pay, Quill said. Or he will not. It is irrelevant. That's not what you said before. I've revised my position, Quill said. Why? Another pause. Because, Quill said, I now understand what the correction truly means. I felt that one. And, Vale pressed, it is not merely an error, Quill said. It is a signal. To whom? To the one who knows, Quill said. And if it's restored, then the signal is sent. And then? Then, Quill said softly, we will see who responds. I stepped back. That was enough to confirm direction, not enough to finish it. A floorboard creaked under my shoe. Inside, the voices stopped. "Did you hear that?" Vale said. I didn't wait, and I moved, quietly but quickly, down the hall and into the stairwell. By the time the door opened behind me, I was already descending. I hit the street, crossed, and slipped back into my observation point. Saul's voice came low from somewhere to my left. "You were close." "Close enough," I said. "What did you get?" "Enough to know Quill and Vale are working together," I said. "They want the original version restored. They're not worried about the blackmail anymore, and they think the sixth course is a signal." "To who?" "That's the question," I said. "And Haft?" "Under control, apparently." Saul grunted. "I'll keep on them." "Do that," I said. Back at the brownstone, Wolfe was waiting. "Well?" he said. I gave it to him, word for a word where it mattered. When I finished, Wolfe closed his eyes for a long moment. "Pfui," he said softly. "Still dangerous." "More so," he said. I sat. "They want the signal sent. They don't care about the money anymore. They just want to see who reacts." "Yes." "And they think Haft will cooperate." "Yes." "And Creel's just a delivery boy." "Yes." I leaned forward. "So what's the signal?" Wolfe opened his eyes. "The sixth course," he said, "in its original form, communicates something specific to a specific individual." "Who?" "That," Wolfe said. "We will determine tomorrow." "How?" "By asking the right question," Wolfe said. "Which is?" He looked at me. "Who at that table would recognize an error, not as a mistake," he said, "but as a message meant only for them?" I didn't answer him right away because the answer wasn't sitting on the surface waiting to be picked up. It had to be dug out of what we already had. And what we had was a table set for 5 people who all knew something and one who didn't know enough. "Someone who recognizes the error," I said slowly, "would have to know the original version well enough to spot it." "Yes." "And well enough to know it was wrong." "Yes." "And well enough to know that putting it back isn't a mistake. It's deliberate." Wolfe nodded. "That narrows it," I said. "Lasser knew. He's dead. Vane might know, but she argued against the correction. She thought the original was fine. Haft knows, but for him it's business, not meaning. Quill knows. She pushed the original. Vale knows because she was coordinating. Creel probably knows because he approved everything. Knowledge alone is insufficient, Wolfe said. Recognition requires context. Meaning? I asked. Meaning that the error must signify something beyond itself, Wolfe said. Something that would be understood only by a particular mind. I sat back. So it's not just about wine or authenticity, it's about what that combination represents. Yes. And Loser figured it out. Yes. And that's why he corrected it, I said. Not just because it was wrong, but because it said something it shouldn't. Wolfe's eyes flickered with approval. Good. And Quill wants it restored, I said, because she wants that message sent. Yes. To someone at the table. Yes. I exhaled. Then we need to know what that original pairing was supposed to say. Wolfe reached for the menu card again, his finger resting lightly where the 6th course had been marked. Archie, he said, what do you know of historical menus? Enough to order lunch, I said. Then you know nothing, he said. Certain combinations, specific dishes paired with particular wines, have been used to signal alliances, commemorate events, even convey insults. Food as code, I said. Yes. And someone at that table would recognize that code. Yes. And react. Yes. I frowned. React how? That, Wolfe said, is what our adversary wishes to observe. The phone rang. I picked it up. Panzer, Saul said. You'll want this. Go. Haft just made a call. Private line. I couldn't hear the whole thing, but I got enough. He said, "It's back on, same as before. Tuesday." I looked at Wolfe. "He's cooperating," I said. "Yes," Wolfe said. "Or he's being forced to. Also possible." "Anything else?" I asked Saul. "One more thing," Saul said. "He mentioned a name." "What name?" "Lesser." That hit. "In what context?" I asked. He said, "Loser won't interfere again." I felt my grip tighten on the receiver. "Keep on him," I said, "and stay close tomorrow." "You got it." I hung up slowly. "Haft's in," I said. "He's restoring the original version. Said Loser won't interfere again." Which suggests he considers Loser's death relevant, Wolfe said. "Or convenient," I said. Wolfe nodded. I leaned forward. "So tomorrow night that 6th course goes out as it was originally planned?" "Yes." "And someone at that table is supposed to recognize it?" "Yes." "And when they do, something happens?" "Yes." I let that settle. "We need to be there." Wolfe snorted. "Pfui. I do not attend dinners arranged by fools and criminals." "You don't have to eat," I said. "You just have to watch." "I do not watch people eat," Wolfe said. "No, it is vulgar." "Then I'll watch," I said. "You can stay here and think about it." He glared at me. "Archie." "Yeah?" "You will attend," he said. "You will observe every person at that table when the 6th course is served. You will note every reaction, however slight." "Got it." "And," Wolfe added, "you will ensure that no harm comes to anyone present." I raised an eyebrow. "That's a broad assignment." "Yes," Wolfe said. "You will manage." I stood. "What about you?" "I will remain here," he said, "and think." "About what?" Wolfe's gaze went to the menu card one last time. "About which of them," he said, "expects to receive that message, and why?" I nodded. "And if you figure it out before dinner?" "I will telephone you," he said. "And if you don't?" "Then you will telephone me," Wolfe said, "with what you observe." I headed for the door, and then paused. "One more thing," I said. "That list Loser left. One of these will not dine as planned." "Yes," Wolfe said. "You still think that means someone gets excluded?" Wolfe's eyes held mine. "No," he said quietly. "I think it means someone will not survive the meal as intended." I didn't argue. Because for the first time since the case began, it didn't feel like a puzzle about food anymore. It felt like a table set for 5, and one seat that might not be empty by the time the plates were cleared. Tuesday came with the kind of quiet that pretends nothing important is about to happen. By 4 o'clock, I had already checked in with Saul twice, confirmed arrangements with Creel, and been reminded by Wolfe 3 separate times not to interfere prematurely. "Observation precedes intervention," he said at the last of those reminders, and as I stood by the door with my hat. "And if intervention becomes necessary?" I asked. "Then," Wolfe said, "you will have observed enough to act intelligently. Try not to improvise stupidity." "I'll do my best," I said, and left. Valerie's house was brighter than before, lit for effect. Whatever else the man feared, he wasn't letting it show in the decor. Inside, the air carried the kind of careful anticipation that belongs to expensive evenings and controlled appetites. Creel met me in the hall, his smile thin and his eyes restless. "Mr. Goodwin," he said, "everything is proceeding." "That's what worries me," I said. "Where are they seated?" He handed me a small card. "Seating arrangement, names in precise script. 5 places at the table, arranged with enough symmetry to satisfy Mrs. Quill's sense of order. Vane, Quill, Haft, and Vale," I read. "And 1 guest." "Yes," Creel said. "Who?" "A Mr. Adrian Morrow." I looked up. Never heard of him. "He was invited through the foundation," Creel said. "A patron. or so I was told. By whom? Creel hesitated. By Mrs. Quill. That tightened it. And Valerie? I asked. In the library, Creel said. He will join later, as arranged. Meaning the guest at the table didn't know who the host was. Still. Good, I said. Keep it that way. I moved into position, not at the table, but where I could see it clearly without being part of it. Fritz would have approved of the setup. It respected the food, if not the people. They came in one by one. Dahlia Vane first. Cool, focused, already half in her kitchen even when seated. Lenore Quill followed, composed as ever, placing herself with quiet authority. Julian Haft arrived next. He was smooth and watchful, eyes flicking once around the room before settling. Corinne Vale came last of the known faces, calm but alert. Then Morrow. Mid-40s, well-dressed, unremarkable in the way that suggests careful construction. His eyes moved differently, though, taking in details, measuring, not a man there for food alone. They sat, the service began. First course, second, third, no disturbance. Conversation stayed polite, controlled. Quill directed it subtly, keeping it light, keeping it moving. Haft contributed just enough. Vane barely spoke. Vale observed. Morrow listened. I watched him most. Fourth course. Fifth. Nothing. But the tension was there, under the surface, like a wire pulled tight and waiting for the right touch. Then the sixth course came. I leaned forward slightly. The plates were set. The wine poured. Oh, and there it was, the original version, the one Lerser had objected to, the one Quill had insisted on, the signal. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Morrow looked down at his plate. Not casually. Not with the polite interest of a diner. He looked at it as if it had spoken. There was the reaction. Small, controlled, but unmistakable. His hand paused. His eyes flicked once, just once toward Haft. Haft saw it, and in that instant, something passed between them. Recognition. I felt it click. Wolfe had been right. The course wasn't just food, it was identification. Morrow knew the pairing, knew what it meant, and knew that whoever had set it in front of him was telling him something very specific. That he had been recognized. That he had been found. Morrow set down his fork. I'm afraid, he said, voice smooth but just tight enough, that this is not what I expected. Quill smiled faintly. On the contrary, Mr. Morrow, it is precisely what was intended. His eyes met hers. And what is that? He asked. To see who notices, she said. That was her mistake, because in that moment she confirmed it, and Morrow understood. His expression shifted, not panic, not yet, but calculation, and then he moved. Fast, too fast for dinner. His hand went inside his jacket. I was already moving. By the time he pulled the gun, I was on him. We hit the floor together, the shot going wide, cracking into something expensive and decorative behind us. Chaos followed, chairs scraping, voices rising, but it didn't matter. I had his wrist, twisting hard, forcing the gun free. Saul appeared as if conjured, taking control before Morrow could try again. Silence fell in pieces. Quill stood, a pale but composed. Haft looked shaken for the first time. Vale was steady, watching everything. And Vane looked furious. Morrow was on his knees now, held firmly. I straightened, breathing once, and looked at him. Dinner's over, I said. He smiled then, not pleasantly. You don't understand, he said. No, I said, but I know who does. I crossed the room, found the phone, and dialed. Wolfe answered on the second ring. Well, he said. It was Morrow, I said. He recognized the course. Went for a gun. A pause. Then Wolfe said very quietly. Of course, I said. You want to share that with the class? In a moment, Wolfe said. Is everyone safe? More or less. Good. Bring them, Wolfe said. All of them, including Mr. Morrow, and if he remains capable of conversation. You're calling the gathering? Yes, Wolfe said. It is time to conclude this absurdity. I hung up and turned back to the room. Change of venue, I said. You're all going to see Nero Wolfe. Quill opened her mouth to object. Don't, I said. You'll want to hear this. Because if I knew Wolfe, and I did, he already had the whole thing laid out, and all that was left was for him to serve it. Getting that crowd from Valerie's dining room to Wolfe's office took persuasion, pressure, and one police call that never quite had to be completed. Saul handled Morrow, who had recovered enough to keep his mouth shut and his eyes moving. Quill objected once, quietly and precisely, and I shut it down just as quietly. Creel looked as if someone had misplaced his spine. Haft came along because he didn't see a way not to. Vale came because she wanted to know how it ended. Vane came because she wanted to see who had ruined her dinner. By the time we reached the brownstone, Wolfe was in his chair, the room arranged as he liked it. Chairs placed with deliberate intention. Fritz had cleared everything that might distract from the main course, which, tonight, was people. They sat where I indicated. Morrow was placed where Saul could reach him without leaning. Wolfe regarded them all in silence for a full half-minute. It is one of his better tools. Then he spoke. This has been conducted with deplorable incompetence, he said. Not the crime, if indeed we agree that murder has occurred, but the surrounding theatrics, anonymous notes, partial disclosures, clumsy blackmail. Phooey. Quill stiffened. Haft looked at the floor. Creel swallowed audibly. Wolfe continued. However, the central device, the use of a menu as a signal, is not without a certain ingenuity. Unfortunately for its author, it was also transparent. Morrow's eyes flicked up. Wolfe saw it. Yes, Mr. Morrow. You. Morrow smiled faintly. You're making assumptions. No, Wolfe said. I'm stating conclusions. You attended a dinner whose host you did not know. You were presented with a particular pairing, the sixth course in its original erroneous form. You recognized it, not as food, but as communication. You responded as expected. Morrow said nothing. Wolfe went on. The question is not whether you recognized it, but why. That requires context. Historical menus, when properly constructed, can encode references, dates, places, events. Now, the pairing in question was not merely incorrect. It was deliberately incorrect, in a way that would be meaningful only to someone familiar with a specific incident. He turned his head slightly. Mr. Haft. Haft looked up reluctantly. You supplied the wine, Wolfe said, or something approximating it. The original pairing referenced a private tasting, Philadelphia, 3 weeks ago, a tasting at which Mr. Bernard Lusser was present. Haft's mouth tightened. Wolfe continued, at that tasting, certain bottles were presented as authentic. Mr. Lusser determined they were not. He confronted you. You argued. Mrs. Quill supported the presentation, appearance over authenticity. Mr. Lusser objected. He threatened exposure. Quill's voice cut in, controlled but sharp. This is speculation. No, Wolfe said. It is deduction supported by evidence. Mr. Panzer has already confirmed the existence of that tasting and Mr. Lusser's objections. What remains is motive. He turned back to Morrow. You were also present at that tasting. Morrow's smile faded. Wolfe nodded once. Yes. Not as yourself, of course. You attended under another name, representing interests that prefer discretion. You were aware of the discrepancy. You were aware of Mr. Lusser's intention to expose it, and you were aware that such exposure would be inconvenient. Morrow said, You can't prove that. I do not need to prove it, Wolfe said. I need only show that it is true." He gestured faintly. "You arranged for the original erroneous pairing to be included in the Valerie dinner. Through Mrs. Quill, who believed she was preserving aesthetic continuity. Through Mr. Haft, and who believed he was preserving his business. You ensured that the menu would reach you without revealing the host. You then used that partial knowledge to initiate blackmail, testing whether Mr. Valerie would pay." Morrow's jaw tightened. "When Mr. Lusser corrected the menu," Wolfe continued, "he removed your signal. You could no longer be certain that the dinner would identify you safely. Worse, his correction threatened to expose the original deception at the tasting. He became an obstacle." Silence settled. Wolfe's voice dropped slightly. "You removed him." Morrow didn't answer. Wolfe didn't press. He turned instead to the others. "Mrs. Quill," he said, "you opposed the correction because it disrupted your design. You did not understand its significance. When you later realized that the original pairing might function as a signal, that you chose to restore it, not to commit murder, but to observe, to see who would react. You became, in effect, an unwitting accomplice." Quill's face had gone pale, but she held herself rigid. Wolfe shifted his gaze. "Mr. Haft, you complied because exposure would ruin you. You did not kill Mr. Lusser, but you benefited from his death. Your cooperation tonight was coerced by circumstance and fear." Haft nodded once, reluctantly. "Miss Vale," Wolfe said, "you observed, you coordinated, and you chose to align yourself with Mrs. Quill in restoring the original arrangement. You suspected something, but not its full extent." Vale inclined her head, composed. "Mr. Creel," Wolfe said, "you were merely the conduit. Your greatest crime is verbosity." Creel flushed. Finally, Wolfe returned to Morrow. "You intended," he said, "mine to confirm whether the signal remained in place. When it did, you recognized that you had been identified, not by your enemies, but by those who had arranged the dinner. You attempted to eliminate the immediate threat." Morrow's voice was quiet. "You're very certain?" "Yes," Wolfe said, "because your reaction was correct." Morrow laughed once without humor. "And what happens now?" Wolfe leaned back. "Now," he said, "you will be handed over to the authorities. Mr. Goodwin has already made the necessary arrangements. Your involvement in Mr. Loser's death will be investigated. Your attempted violence tonight will be prosecuted." Morrow's shoulders sagged just slightly. Wolfe looked around the room. "As for the rest of you," he said, "you may consider yourselves fortunate. Your errors were aesthetic, not fatal. I suggest you learn the difference." Silence held for a moment longer. Then Wolfe added, almost as an afterthought, "A menu, properly constructed, should satisfy the appetite without compromising the integrity of the table. When it becomes a vehicle for deception, it ceases to be cuisine and becomes evidence." He made a small gesture. "That is all." Saul moved in. The police, already on their way, would take Morrow from there. One by one they left. Quill without a word, Haft with a glance that tried to measure the cost, Vale with quiet composure, Creel with relief and something like awe. Vane last, pausing just long enough to say, "Next time, I cook, no corrections." Wolfe inclined his head. When the door closed and the house returned to itself, I looked at him. "Well," I said, "dinner's over." "Yes," Wolfe said. "Any final thoughts?" He closed his eyes briefly, then opened them. "Archie," he said, "the appetite for deception is rarely satisfied. It must be checked, not indulged." I nodded. "And the food?" Wolfe's expression shifted, just enough. "Was ruined," he said. I don't argue with Wolfe about food when he's right, which is often and annoying. The dinner had been ruined, not because of the cooking, which Dahlia Vane would have defended with knives, but because it had been used for something it was never meant to carry. After the last of them had gone and the police had taken Morrow away, The brown stone settled back into its proper shape. The chairs were where they belonged, the air had lost its tension, and Fritz was in the kitchen doing something restorative with butter and quiet disapproval. And I sat at my desk and looked at the menu card one more time. It didn't look dangerous anymore. Just paper, ink, and a mistake that had been made, corrected, and then nearly used to kill a man. "Archie," Wolfe said. "Yeah? Put that away." I did. There are cases that end with noise, confessions, protests, sometimes tears. This one ended with silence and a man taken out in handcuffs who had understood too late that he had been the one identified, not the one doing the identifying. Still, there were loose ends, and Wolfe doesn't leave those lying around any more than Fritz leaves a pan unwashed. "Walk me through it," I said. "From the beginning? The whole thing?" Wolfe adjusted in his chair, which is his version of stretching. "Very well," he said. "We begin with an error, deliberate, though not initially recognized as such. The sixth course, in its original form, referenced a specific event, the Philadelphia tasting. The pairing, incorrect on its face, was in fact accurate to what had been presented there, fraudulently. Meaning it pointed straight at Haft, I said. And at those who supported him, Wolfe said. Mrs. Quill, who valued presentation over authenticity, and Mr. Creel, who deferred rather than examined. "And Loser," I said, "who saw through it." Yes, Mr. Loser recognized that the pairing was not merely incorrect, but indicative of deception. He corrected it, thereby removing the reference. "And that made him a problem," I said. "Precisely. For Mr. Morrow, who had been present at that tasting under an assumed identity, he knew the truth of the pairing. And when he learned of the Valerie dinner, through channels we need not detail, he saw an opportunity. To use the menu as a signal, I said. Yes. By ensuring the original pairing remained. He could confirm whether those involved were the same individuals, whether the deception continued, and whether he himself had been recognized. And if he wasn't, I asked. Then he would proceed with blackmail, Wolfe said. Using partial knowledge, sufficient to alarm, insufficient to expose. But Loser's correction ruined that, I said. Yes. Without the signal, Mr. Morrow could not safely identify his position relative to the others. He could not know whether he had been exposed. So he killed Loser, I said. Wolfe inclined his head. It is the most reasonable conclusion. Mr. Loser's death removed the obstacle. However, saying the correction had already been made, Mr. Morrow then needed it undone. Which is where Quill comes in, I said. She wanted the original back for her own reasons. Yes, Mrs. Quill's motives were aesthetic and reputational. She did not understand the deeper significance initially. When she began to suspect it, she chose to restore the original pairing, not to assist Mr. Morrow, but to observe. To see who reacted, I said. Yes. And Vale helped her, I said. Miss Vale is efficient, Wolfe said. She aligns with control. And Haft? I asked. Complicit through fear, Wolfe said. Exposure would destroy him. Cooperation was his only option. I leaned back, and Creel just kept the machinery running. Regrettably, yes. I nodded slowly. So Morrow shows up, sees the original pairing, realizes he's been identified. Sue and panics. Not panic, Wolfe said. Calculation under pressure. He attempted to remove the immediate threat. Which was the table, I said. Or a specific individual at it, Wolfe said. We cannot be certain which. I let that sit. And the list Loser left, I said. One of these will not dine as planned. Yes, Wolfe said. He knew, I said. He knew someone was going to get hurt. He knew the correction would provoke a response, Wolfe said. He did not know its precise form. I exhaled. So he left a warning. Yes. And nobody understood it until it was almost too late. Correct. Silence settled for a moment. Then I said, "You figured it out from the menu." Wolfe made a small sound. "From the relationships, Archie. The menu was merely the framework." "Still," I said, "not bad for a piece of paper." "It was not the paper," Wolfe said. "It was what people were willing to do to preserve or conceal what it represented." I grinned. "You mean lie, cheat, and kill over dinner?" "Yes," Wolfe said. "Which is, regrettably, not uncommon." Fritz appeared in the doorway. "Dinner is served," he said. Wolfe rose. At the table, the food was perfect, which is the only way it is allowed to be. For a few minutes, nothing existed but the meal, which is as it should be. Halfway through, I said, "You know, if that sixth course had gone out the way Lesier wanted, none of this would have happened." Wolfe looked at me over his plate. "On the contrary," he said, "it would have happened differently." "Better?" I asked. "Less clumsily," Wolfe said. I considered that. "So you're saying the mistake wasn't the problem?" "The mistake," Wolfe said, "was inevitable. The response to it is what reveals character." "And appetite," I said. He nodded once. "Yes." We finished in silence. Later, as I sat in the office with a glass of something that didn't pretend to be more than it was, I made a note for myself. In Nero Wolfe's house, the menu matters. Not because of what's on it, but because of what people think they can hide behind it, and what they reveal when they can't. I put the note away, and that was that.